They say revenge works best when it's cold. But sometimes the most devastating response isn't rage or insults. Sometimes it's a single decision that lands harder than any public blow-up. For Caitlin Clark, revenge didn't come through arguments or online drama. It came through control, timing, and one move that quietly rattled the basketball world. Her response was simple and sharp. She turned down a deal worth over $1 million for just 8 weeks of play. From the outside, it looked like effortless cash, the kind most players would grab without blinking. But behind the scenes, that offer carried weight. It was tied to the same figure who once brushed her aside, minimized her talent, and treated her like another temporary name in a long history of players he believed he'd already outgrown. Walking away wasn't about pride alone. It was a calculated flex. The rejection landed on someone who never expected to be told no, especially not by the athlete he failed to take seriously. This goes way beyond stats and highlight packages. Many of you have been saying this for weeks, and you were on to something. This is about authority and how fast it can slip when the game changes direction. If you believe the story behind the story matters, smash that like button. It tells us we're on the right track. Women's basketball spent decades under the same power structure, run by familiar voices who decided what mattered and who mattered. That comfort built blind spots. Change was coming straight at them, and they didn't see it until it was too late. Caitlin Clark represented what was next, and the real shock came when she chose independence instead of permission. She didn't need approval. She didn't need protection. She didn't need a paycheck tied to someone else's control. Her momentum was already real, already moving, and already bigger than any single deal. Let's filter out the noise and connect the dots here. This moment signaled a fundamental shift. Power doesn't get handed over politely. It gets taken through restraint and timing. The decision cost real money, cracked a long-standing image, and exposed how fragile old authority can be when new voices stop playing along. Nothing about this was random. It was intentional, clean, and impossible to dismiss. Every legendary downfall starts with a misread, and Geno Auriemma's mistake wasn't a bad rotation or a tournament loss. It was far deeper than that. It was a blind spot, a choice to overlook something right in front of him, a decision that would circle back in ways nobody could have predicted. Long before Caitlin Clark became the face of the sport, before packed arenas and record television numbers, she was just a kid chasing a hoop dream. Like countless young players, that dream pointed straight to UConn. It wasn't just a school, it was the standard, the dynasty everyone measured themselves against, a factory for greatness that produced icons like Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, and Breanna Stewart. UConn was power, history, and dominance wrapped into one name. For Clark, it represented the peak, the ultimate destination, the place that defined success in women's basketball. When recruitment rolled around, everything seemed lined up. A generational scorer with deep range and vision knocking on the door of the most decorated coach the game had ever seen. On paper, it looked automatic, but reality hit different. The connection never formed. The door didn't swing open the way people expected. That disconnect would end up shaping everything that followed. What looked like a small miss at the time slowly turned into the turning point of an era. Reading between the lines reveals something crucial. By her own account, the interest from UConn was never serious. Geno's staff made light contact through her AAU coach, a quick call here, a casual check-in there. But Geno himself never reached out directly. He never called Caitlin Clark. He never spoke to her parents. That silence said everything. The message was obvious. She wasn't a priority. And when questions came up about why, Geno's response showed exactly how comfortable he was at the top. He said he'd already committed early to Paige Bueckers and didn't want two-point guards in the same class. On the surface, that explanation sounded reasonable. Then came the part that crossed the line. Geno suggested that if Clark truly wanted UConn, she should have been the one to call him. Let that sink in. The most accomplished recruiter in women's college basketball, a coach known for identifying elite talent years ahead of everyone else, looked at Caitlin Clark and brushed her aside, then placed the responsibility on a teenager to chase him down. That wasn't just a missed connection, that was disrespect, the kind that sticks with you. While Geno moved on without a second thought, Clark paid attention. She understood exactly what the situation meant. She wasn't their chosen star. She wasn't part of their plan. In his eyes, she didn't fit the UConn mold. With that mindset, the so-called ruler of the women's game quietly shut the door. Looking back, it was a door he should have kept wide open. Caitlin Clark was never just another recruit passing through the system. She wasn't the next version of someone else or a copy of a past legend. She was different. She was a rare force waiting for the right stage. By the time that reality became impossible to ignore, the chance was gone, and the regret would only grow deeper with each record she shattered. But here's where it gets interesting. Years passed. Clark went to Iowa instead. She built something extraordinary from the ground up. She didn't just become good, she became historic. She rewrote record books. She drew crowds that rivaled men's games. She brought attention to women's basketball that nobody thought possible. And she did it all without the UConn stamp of approval. Meanwhile, Geno watched from a distance. He saw the numbers. He saw the crowds. He saw what he'd passed on becoming the biggest story in the sport. But here's what makes this fascinating. As Clark's star rose, something unexpected happened. Geno's public comments about her started to shift, and not in subtle ways. Early in her WNBA rookie season, he went on record with some harsh assessments. He questioned whether she was built for the physicality of the league. He called her fan base delusional for thinking she'd tear apart the WNBA. He even said the rookie class wasn't one of the best in the last 10 years. Despite all the attention, these weren't casual observations. They were pointed. They carried weight. And many of you noticed the pattern immediately. If you've been connecting these dots in the comments, drop your thoughts below. What did you see that others missed? Because the shift in Geno's tone wasn't random. It revealed something deeper about how threatened he felt by her success existing completely outside his ecosystem. The wild part is Caitlin Clark never chased his validation. She didn't have to. She just stayed locked in, kept lighting up scoreboards, kept smashing records, and let time do the work. Until the same man who overlooked her years earlier showed back up with an offer in his hands. That's when everything came full circle. Enter Unrivaled, a new 3-on-3 women's basketball league co-founded by Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier. The concept had potential, elite talent, innovative format, strong backing. But there was one problem. The league needed a centerpiece, a name that would make casual fans tune in, a player who could turn interest into must-watch television. And there was only one person who fit that description. Sources suggest that Geno, who was involved with the league's formation, personally pushed to bring Caitlin Clark into the fold. We're getting into rumor territory here, but multiple insiders have whispered about his direct involvement in crafting the offer. The number that landed on the table? Over $1 million for just 8 weeks of play. That kind of money gets attention. It was designed to be irresistible. But let's be clear about what that offer really represented. It wasn't just a contract. It was an attempt to rewrite the narrative. If Clark signed, the story would become about Geno's league rescuing her off-season, about his vision giving her a platform, about his ecosystem still being the center of women's basketball. The offer was control dressed up as opportunity. The breadcrumbs lead to something even more calculated. If these reports are accurate, Geno believed his connection to UConn's legacy and his role in Unrivaled gave him leverage. He thought Clark would see the dollar amount and say yes without hesitation. He thought she still needed what he was offering. That confidence, that assumption of control, is what makes what happened next so devastating. Caitlin Clark said no. She declined, firmly, quietly, without drama or drawn-out explanations, just a simple decision that landed like a shockwave. What was supposed to be his checkmate turned into the moment his lack of control was fully exposed. This wasn't just a business choice. It was a statement made without noise, and it landed harder than anything he'd ever said about her. When Clark said no, she wasn't just turning down a contract, she was turning down him, his approval, his system, his last attempt to reshape her story into something that still revolved around him. That single decision sent a clear message. She didn't need his league, she didn't need his backing, she didn't need validation from someone who never believed in her to begin with. She'd already built her own lane, and she planned to keep moving forward without looking back. For Geno, the moment was devastating. The same man who once couldn't be bothered to make a phone call was now offering over $1 million, and she declined without hesitation. No public bitterness, no lengthy explanation, just a firm, quiet decision. That kind of rejection hits harder than words ever could. With Clark gone, Unrivaled lost its centerpiece, its pull, its identity. That offer was never just about money. It was an admission. The league needed her far more than she needed it. When she walked away, the excitement surrounding the project faded almost instantly. Fans started asking what the league really had without her. Online, the reaction was brutal. People pointed out the irony. After years of dismissing her, he was left hoping she would save him. Clark ended what he thought was a long chess match with one move. She didn't debate, she didn't justify herself. She simply stepped away. That silence carried weight. The truth became impossible to ignore. Geno's era was winding down. His influence was no longer what it once was. Clark didn't just take the spotlight. She removed the illusion of control. This moment was never about regret. Of course he regretted it. The bigger question is what it represented. What happens when an entire generation of coaches, executives, and power brokers realizes they're no longer the center of the sport? Clark's rejection wasn't just personal. It was a signal, a clear sign that the balance had shifted. Players no longer need permission to shine. They no longer need to fit into old systems to matter. They can build their own brands, command their own audiences, and walk away from massive offers without flinching. Maybe the old saying had it wrong. Maybe revenge doesn't need heat or noise. Maybe the strongest response is quiet. One calm decision made at the right moment. Clark didn't lash out. She kept winning, she kept growing, she kept building, and when the moment came that truly tested where the power lived, she answered without hesitation. This was never really about a contract, it was about control. For decades, the old guard decided who mattered in women's basketball. They set the path. If you wanted greatness, you had to go through them. That was the unspoken rule. Clark broke it. She didn't need banners to define her. She didn't need a legendary coach to legitimize her talent. She didn't play by rules written before she arrived. She wrote her own. If you want the stories, they don't want you paying attention to. The power moves behind the scenes and the moments that quietly change the game. Stay locked in right here. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, because this shift is just beginning, and we're tracking every move, every decision, every moment that proves the future belongs to the players. The next era is already here, driven by athletes who know their worth and aren't afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't serve them. This won't be the last time a powerful figure misreads the moment. The warning has already been delivered, quietly, clearly, and the future is no longer asking for permission.